let's say someone has done everything right, but just due to the competitive nature of admissions, they end up being placed on the wait list. I would imagine that waitlisting and deferring is also something that I've seen on my end has increased over time for applicants. It's become a lot more frequent.
Yeah, law schools need a waiting list. We're not sure how things are going to turn out before our deposit deadlines, and so we need to have people on the waiting list. And I encourage people who are on the waiting list to express their interest, to do so in a respectful way, in a way that any law school suggests. Most law schools are going to be upfront about. Usually will provide FAQs, for example, for somebody on the waiting list, how often to express your continued interest and how to express it and what additional materials you can submit. And I encourage anybody in that position to do that and to express your interest, but also, if possible, to try to then put it out of your mind, presume it's not going to happen, and then hopefully be pleasantly surprised.
What percentage of applicants, if you're able to share, what percentage of applicants typically does UCLA waitlist or defer?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by defer. We don't really, so to me, defer means we're admitting somebody and then they request to defer to the following year. So I'm not sure if that's what you're asking about. That's a whole separate issue. As a percentage of applicants, I would say off the top of my head, obviously it depends how many applicants we get, but I would say maybe 10 to 15% of the applicants each year are offered a spot on the waiting list.
Okay, so out of those 10 to 15% each cycle over the years, have you noticed any particular standout examples of applicants who demonstrated continued interest in a desirable way? And then on the flip side, any standouts in a negative light?
Yes, both for sure. Should we start with the negative first?
Yeah, sure. That's always juicy, right?
More fun. I think there have been people that have just shown up outside our office on the day of orientation morning. So I'm walking in on what's going to be a very busy day, and they're here before I'm even here, so it's 7:30 in the morning, and they're just sitting outside the office thinking that because they're there, in case somebody doesn't show, that seat's going to go to them. And that just, I think, just shows bad judgment. And we've had people buy lunch and send it in to the entire office, or send desserts and cakes and things like that. So obviously that's on the inappropriate side. Hopefully most people would realize that. On the plus side, I think it's really expressing as clearly as you can why it is that you feel that you want to be part of a particular law school, and in our case, UCLA, maybe some of the particular programs we offer, and why you might be a good fit for that. But at the end of the day, I think you have to realize, as long as you're doing that, you're doing the best that you can. And it's factors outside your control sometimes that are going to ultimately dictate whether or not a school is going to be able to offer you a seat, because it's going to depend how many people withdraw, who those people are, things of that nature.
I would imagine that each cycle you get a particular applicant pool that varies, and so your ultimate decision for whether to admit a particular candidate or not is based on the mix of who else is coming in that cycle.
Exactly. Absolutely.